ask me where I'm going to lay my head down when darkness falls out here, the honest answer is wherever my feet stop walking. I've been locked in a brutal battle with heavy chemical dependencies for as long as I can remember. The concrete sidewalks and the survival grind are literally the only ecosystem I actually understand anymore. Out here on the pavement, we end up turning on each other, stealing from the very people sharing our alleyways. It's not out of malice. It's just the primal code of survival once you've been pushed completely off the edge of society. Welcome to Homeless U.S. News. San Francisco, California, a global metropolis celebrated as the absolute cradle of technological innovation. This is a city capable of engineering software, platforms, and applications that dictate daily life for billions of people across the planet. Yet, within this very same geographical boundary, the system is fundamentally incapable of providing thousands of its own citizens with a basic front door to lock at night. This is the deep, bleeding paradox of the Bay Area. Multi-billion-dollar corporate tech headquarters stretch majestically into the clouds, while directly below their glass windows, rows of tearing nylon tents line broken sidewalks. In recent cycles, nearly 8,000 human beings were documented as experiencing absolute homelessness within San Francisco, while the market price of a basic one-bedroom apartment remains completely out of reach for the entire working class. Out here, the humanitarian emergency does not crawl into hidden corners to hide from public view. It stands directly outside luxury condominium plazas, occupies the shadows beneath freeway bypasses, lines the perimeters of train stations, and plays out right in front of international tourists carrying high-end cameras. Some of these individuals are locked in intense battles with severe behavioral health issues. Others are fighting complex structural dependencies, and thousands were simply priced out of their lives until the city they once built became impossible to survive inside. San Francisco constantly markets itself as the blueprint of the future. But on these cold pavements, the future looks like a worn sleeping bag, an overloaded rolling cart, and a human soul desperately trying not to vanish from existence. Stay with this extensive investigative documentary until the very final frame, because what you are about to witness will completely alter how you comprehend one of the wealthiest metropolitan areas on Earth. If you believe that human dignity should never be treated as invisible collateral damage, smash that like button right now, turn on all notifications, and subscribe to Homeless U.S. News. Let's walk these blocks together. Drop a comment below. How can a city with unprecedented resource concentration leave thousands of its own neighbors to break on the concrete? Let's uncover the truth. Part 1. The Silicon Division, the true ledger of the Bay Area emergency. To truly comprehend the depth of human displacement across San Francisco, you have to look past the pristine corporate plazas and analyze the structural reality of the point-in-time metrics. According to the latest comprehensive data compiled by regional housing and health agencies, thousands of people are trapped in the cycle of absolute housing loss across the city. On any given night, while municipal administrators frequently highlight selective progress and a reduction in high-visibility street encampments, the underlying crisis remains incredibly severe, shifting its density between emergency shelters, unpowered vehicles, and public transit corridors. The daily reality for those forced to exist without a secure home is an exhausting, non-stop logistical marathon against the environment. Unhoused residents must spend their daylight hours in permanent physical movement, carrying their entire material worlds in heavy backpacks or plastic grocery bags, constantly hunting for a public facility to maintain their hygiene, and searching for a patch of sidewalk where they won't be targeted by local enforcement bylaws. The total absence of privacy and the constant exposure to a critical public view extract an immense psychological tax, keeping the human nervous system locked in a permanent state of survival alarm. The stability that the middle class takes for granted has been systematically stripped away from these individuals, turning the simple act of closing a door for safety into an unattainable luxury. While overall statistical metrics may show minor fluctuations, the distribution of the emergency remains deeply uneven. Most alarming is the quiet spike in family homelessness. Households with young children are increasingly found moving between temporary weekly motels and overcrowded vehicles, waiting for months on stagnant municipal housing registries. This mass displacement is not an overnight anomaly. It is the direct mathematical outcome of an exclusive economy that treats basic human shelter as a financial asset rather than a fundamental necessity, leaving ordinary workers to fracture on the concrete of their own hometowns. Part 2. Ground Zero, the structural trap of the Tenderloin. The absolute epicenter of this humanitarian emergency is found within a compact sector of the city, known across the globe as the Tenderloin. This historic neighborhood has become a high-density zone of public distress, where hundreds of people experiencing chronic homelessness, mobile outreach workers, and frontline service providers are packed tightly onto the exact same pavement blocks. This extreme concentration creates an urban ecosystem of immense vulnerability and structural friction, because the vast majority of the city's low-barrier food programs, medical clinics, and drop-in centers are geographically anchored within these few blocks. The Tenderloin systematically absorbs the heaviest weight of poverty. Whenever economic shocks ripple through the wider Bay Area, unhoused citizens who lose their footing in outer districts are pulled into this grid, simply because it holds the basic resources required to survive the next 24 hours. Yet, having an outreach clinic down the block does nothing to make the daily mechanics of street survival clean or safe. Walk through these corridors at dawn, and you will see the human cost written on every face. Elderly residents carefully folding damp blankets on the concrete, people guarding their meager belongings from predators, and workers trying to prepare for the day without a single square foot of private space. Many of these individuals have been trapped inside this grid for years, cycling continuously between temporary emergency cots and the open sidewalk. Others arrived recently, pushed out of traditional apartments by skyrocketing utility costs or sudden job layoffs. The Tenderloin reveals the rawest form of urban displacement in neighborhood, where the warmth of community survival and the exhaustion of absolute destitution exist side by side on the same concrete curbs. Part 3. The chemical VC, life inside the fog of exposure. We cannot present an honest investigation into the San Francisco emergency without looking directly at the devastating public health crisis unfolding across its sidewalks. In sectors like the Tenderloin and south of Market, the complete absence of stable housing has forced the raw reality of severe chemical dependency out into full public view, turning commercial doorways and public alleyways into open stages of human suffering. For an unsheltered person, the street corner serves as their bedroom, their shelter, and their battlefield all at once. When a human being is forced to endure the intense trauma of outdoor exposure, constant sleep deprivation, environmental dampness, and public degradation, their natural psychological defenses break down. To numb the physical pain of the concrete and quiet the internal chaos of absolute isolation, many turn to hyperpotent synthetic street substances as a desperate form of self-medication. But what begins as a temporary escape quickly transforms into a biological prison that controls every cognitive function of the mind. The physical decay inflicted by this toxic street supply is constant, predatory, and visible to anyone passing by. Severe muscle mass loss, raw untreated skin ulcerations, and a profound neurological exhaustion that drops individuals into trance-like states of total immobility for hours at a time. The substances cloud the judgment, suppress the appetite, and destroy human willpower, turning the simple logistics of daily life, like keeping track of a housing appointment or maintaining personal identity documents, into impossible mountains to climb. The quicksand of the pavement and the vortex of dependency reinforce each other continuously, creating a cycle that is nearly impossible to break without an immediate foundation of absolute physical safety and professional, long-term clinical care. Part 4. Penthouse economics, real estate in the Hyper Valley. The primary driver pushing families and workers out of their homes and onto the pavements of San Francisco is a massive structural affordability wall that has completely decoupled the cost of shelter from local working class incomes. The city's tech-driven economy generates unprecedented amounts of global capital, but that immense wealth has hyperinflated the local housing market, turning a basic room into a luxury financial asset that requires an extraordinary financial profile just to cross the threshold. This economic divide creates a stark, daily contrast across the urban landscape. Gleaming new high-rises featuring advanced security and luxury amenities stand directly within the line of sight of historic single-room occupancy hotels where low-income seniors and disabled citizens survive on fixed state checks that have been completely frozen for years. Technology workers hurry past service employees, janitors, and retail staff who once maintained stable apartments before rising corporate rents. And corporate evictions caught up with their budgets when a housing market is shaped by what global wealthy buyers can pay, rather than what the local workforce can afford. The stability of the entire blue-collar economy is completely destroyed. A single common life emergency, a cut in work hours, an unexpected medical invoice, or a landlord's decision to renovate a building wipes out a household budget instantly. In a city where everything moves at lightning speed, falling behind on rent means entering a rapid legal eviction pipeline that lands you directly inside a vehicle or a nylon tent on a concrete median. Prosperity and hardship are not separate narratives in San Diego or San Francisco. They are connected chapters in the exact same book, proving that a massive gross domestic product is a hollow metric if it cannot provide a floor for the people who keep the city running. Part 5. The infrastructure gap, the treatment bed shortage. For the thousands of human beings attempting to escape the cycle of dependency on San Francisco's streets, the absolute hardest part of the struggle is not the lack of a blanket. It is the complete shortage of long-term residential recovery infrastructure. While municipal administrators have expanded short-term stabilization cots and street-level harm reduction services, the availability of comprehensive treatment beds that allow a patient to remain inside a controlled environment for the months required to heal remains severely limited. Frontline service providers report that individuals who make the difficult, vulnerable decision to ask for professional help frequently face administrative waiting lists that stretch for weeks or even months. Inside a high-intensity street environment, asking a person in acute withdrawal to wait for a phone call is a structural failure. The gap between wanting help and actually receiving a bed turns hope into another form of slow psychological punishment. The human cost of this shortage plays out every single day on the pavement. An individual spends weeks building enough personal trust with a mobile outreach worker to finally accept transition services, only to discover that the next step, a long-term residential program, possesses zero immediate openings. They are sent back to the exact same sidewalk corners, carrying the same heavy bags and the same quiet fear that their internal moment of wanting change will evaporate before a bed becomes available. Managing withdrawal symptoms in full view of public traffic strips away the last remaining fragments of human dignity. Without a private room, a secure bed, and consistent clinical supervision, the path to recovery is broken continuously, leaving vulnerable souls trapped in survival mode, while the surrounding community watches the exact same individuals struggle in the exact same spots, day after day. Part 6. The budget chasm, evaluating the millions on paper. San Francisco's primary departments responsible for the homelessness response operate with an unprecedented, Massive financial engine backed by a budget of $846 million in a single fiscal year, with the largest share directed toward emergency housing assistance and supportive services. This historic level of investment reflects both the gravity of the public emergency and the scale of the taxpayer resources committed to resolving it. Yet, for years, the visible density of human distress on the sidewalks continued to expand, leaving residents and merchants asking why these massive allocations were failing to reach the pavement in time to change lives. The structural disconnect inside this budget chasm is measured in the repeated stories of citizens who received temporary shelter placement only to find themselves turned back out onto the asphalt because permanent housing pipelines were completely bottlenecked. A person spends months navigating complex municipal paperwork and digital appointments, only to discover that the unit they were matched with faces severe maintenance delays, or that the supportive case management attached to it possesses a waiting list a year long. Each time an administrative door slams shut, the weight of carrying your possessions through the rain and defending your safety grows heavier. In recent counts, a focused pairing of funding with specialized outreach models has achieved a documented 20% drop in unsheltered individuals and a significant reduction in visible street tents. These shifts prove that when capital is engineered around practical coordination between housing and healthcare services, real progress can occur. But the previous years of slower, bureaucratic movement have left behind a deep reservoir of emotional exhaustion among both the unhoused population and the frontline outreach staff. People have grown quietly disappointed by massive budget announcements that fail to materialize as a hot shower or a secure room on the block where they sleep, proving that compassion without capacity is an expensive illusion. Outro, the mirror of the bay. As the evening fog rolls off the Pacific Ocean, blanketing the historic steeples of the Tenderloin and the dark alleyways of San Francisco, our extensive journey through this crisis comes to a close. The neon signs of the luxury commercial high-rises flicker on, while down on the concrete sidewalks, thousands of our neighbors are preparing to face another cold night exposed to the elements. With no deadbolt to turn and no private sanctuary to rest their minds, the thousands of human hearts sleeping outside in San Francisco tonight are a living mirror, held up to our entire society, asking us what level of human misery we are willing to tolerate in a nation of immense abundance. They remind us that our shared stability is far more fragile than we care to admit, and that any life can be completely altered if the safety net snaps at the wrong time. They aren't asking for passive pity or empty political promises. They are dreaming of the simplest, most fundamental human rights: a quiet bed lifted off the hard ground, a front door with a key that turns, and the peace of knowing they belong somewhere safe. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts for staying with us until the very final second of this extensive continuous documentary on homeless U.S. News. In a digital world designed around rapid distraction, your decision to sit with this heavy, unfiltered truth from the first sentence to the last word carries real human weight. You are no longer just a passive viewer. You are a witness to the reality of your neighbors. If this journey through the paradox of San Francisco has touched your heart, challenged your assumptions, or made you look at the streets of your own city with a little more kindness, please take a brief moment right now to smash that like button. It takes less than a second, but it tells the algorithm that deep, human-centered journalism matters, helping this message reach thousands of more minds who need to awaken to this truth. If you want to continue walking alongside us through the hidden corners of America and giving a powerful voice to those who have been silenced in the shadows, hit subscribe to Homeless U.S. News and turn on that notification bell. We are building a global community that refuses to look away from human suffering. We want to hear your voice. What part of this documentary hit you the hardest? Have you noticed this housing crisis shifting in your own hometown? Let's start an honest, deeply respectful conversation in the comments section below. We read every single thought you share, Let's keep our empathy alive, reject indifference, and remember that we are all much closer to each other than the world wants us to believe. Stay warm, stay safe, and we will see you in the next story on Homeless US News.